Hello and welcome to another episode of Raptors Pilgrimage. I just realized that the title isn't 100% accurate. It's season 1, episode 2. What do I mean by season? What do I mean by episode? Such a good question. Don't really know at this point. It's just really, it's just to keep track of how many I've done, and season will probably turn out to be a year's worth. So season 1 would be the first year, season 2 would be the second year. Or maybe I do it month to month. Depends on how many I do. So far I've done one a day. I did one yesterday, I'm doing one today. So we'll see. Today's episode is titled One Long Rant. So as you can see in the title card, One Long Rant. And I want to do one episode. I want to do specifically about how to read my title cards. I want to sort of go get really into it. So maybe we'll do that today. Maybe I'll do like an intro to Raptor, which is, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, it's my own phonetic script. So it's what it is I took the 37 individual sounds, core sounds, kind of like elements on the periodic table of elements, and I broke down the English language. I didn't do too much research into other languages, but I used the English language as a starting point to figure out how many sounds there were, how many individual sounds there were. And as I was figuring that out, I realized that some sounds were a combination of two sounds, like ow is really ah and w, ow, ow. And oi is really oi, 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 oi. And what's that about? I is really I, or I. And so doing that, as I figured it out, I was able to break it down to 37 individual core sounds. Now it's 38 for French so far. French has one more, which is the on sound, like in bonjour. And certainly in English, there are two sounds, r and r. One is a throat trill, the other is a tongue trill, which aren't really used in English, but I included it in the phonetic because they're sounds that I personally like and can use. So maybe that's what I'll start with, because today's one long rant. But I'd rather do a whole episode on it. And today I was just going to rant about friendship. And so maybe I'll save that. I'll save it. I'll make a note of it. Maybe I'll do it today, but maybe because this episode is titled One Long Rant, I'll just rant about stuff before I get really into Raptor. So make an episode about Raptor. Now, what's great is I've been practicing. It's only been probably about a month, maybe a month and a half at most. And I bet it's probably been even less than that, that I've been practicing. And it's incredible how quickly I've been able to learn to read in Raptor. And and yeah, it's just it's incredible how the mind works. And I don't know if it's in part because I invented it, I developed it, so it comes so naturally to me. I see it, and it's my creation, so therefore you'd expect that I'd be able to read and write in Raptor really well and fluently, and I can. And it's almost getting to the point where I prefer to write in Raptor. I'll stop. I'll stop pronouncing it properly, and we'll just call it Raptor because that's what Raptor means, is Raptor. I just prefer. I want to in again the two letters. Let me just. I'll give you a quick little lesson here. That's ra in the throat. And this is ra with the tongue. This one here. It's sort of like a backwards R. Anyways, it's one of those things that I just, I'm creative, and I like to express my creativity in different ways. But anyways, going back to like One Long Rant, the title of the episode. I wrote a letter to a friend today that I haven't spoken to in about a year, and I like doing that. I like getting back in touch with people after such a long time, because you got to wonder, why haven't we been talking? What is it about what we last said that stopped them from responding? And then what can I say now that will entice them to respond again? And especially, I think it has something to do with their overall perception of you compared to their immediate perception of you. And what I mean by that is the very last thing that you said, which caused them to not stop responding, or just stop, or not, yeah, you know what I mean, is very different from when they're looking back on their overall experience of you, which could, average out to be very positive. And so they're more inclined, a year later to respond, especially if what you've just said immediately is very positive. And, and this person in particular, I wasn't mean to or rude to. It's just, I got very, I tend to push people away, in different ways. I tend to try and find ways of testing people and seeing how much of me that they can handle. And at a certain point, most people kind of give up. They don't like playing my game. And that's kind of sad for me, because it's not really a game. It's just I'm trying to see if they're my equal. I find there's not a lot of people in the world who are my equal. And I don't mean to say that there aren't a lot of people who are intellectual. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. It's just, are they on my level? Like, there are many people in the world, I'm thinking of PhD scholars who are very intellectual and could probably talk me down into corners. But I feel like I'm in this midpoint, this mid-range, where I'm more intellectual than the average person, but I'm less intellectual than the average PhD. And so it's kind of this weird place where no one really likes talking about the things that I like talking about. But it wasn't always that way. I mean, there was a time when I was young, and I had a friend who we loved talking about deep topics. What does it mean to be alive? And we talked a lot about girls. We probably beat that dead horse with a dead cat a little too much. But certainly he was on par with me for a really long time, but now he's just gotten older and his focuses have changed and he doesn't really like to philosophize about things very much anymore. And I still do. I still like to think about things. And anyway, so this friend of mine, I haven't talked to her in about a year. So I was just kind of playing around with, what do you say to get back into their inner circle, I guess you could call it, or at least into their what do you call their immediate response zone, meaning where you're engaging enough that they want to respond. Because I mean, we've lost touch. This is another thing where I differ. I love writing letters. I love writing emails and letters to people, and I write long letters and long emails because I'm just very good at going and going and going. I mean, you've probably noticed if you've been here, I can just talk and talk and talk about almost anything. And part of that is that I like the sound of my voice, so my mind kind of keeps trying to just come up with stuff in order to keep hearing the sound of my voice. It's sort of like a snowball effect, but it's also just because I'm always thinking, I'm always coming up with new ideas, and I've always been creative that way. Like I used to be really good at writing comedy. I don't know if I'm so good at it now because I'm out of practice, but I used to be really good at it when I was younger, especially if I had someone to play off of. And so anyways, so I can write long emails or long letters, and what I usually get back is like half. Typically it comes down to like between half of what I've written or to maybe a third is what I get back. So I usually expect if I write, a full page, I'm going to get back half a page to a third of a page. And yeah, anyway, so I don't really know what I'm expecting from her in response, but we'll see. I'm hoping we can get back in touch, because we have sort of this inside joke. Well, it's more my inside joke, and it's not really a joke, but I really want to get successful in life and make a lot of money at computer programming and artificial intelligence, developing systems and software that I can sell and make a profit on, so that I can hire her one day. Because I told her once in the past, I said, I'm gonna start a company and I'm gonna hire you. And I kind of, just as a personal goal, I don't want that to be just conjecture, or not conjecture, that's not the right word. Just a false statement, just, something I said at the time, because after I said it, I was like, man, that'd be really cool if I could get to that point. And so it's this personal thing that I want to achieve. And yeah, so we'll see. I just gotta study hard and focus on my life. But something I talked about in that letter was how lonely I feel. And a big reason why I'm doing these videos, and this video today is, sorry, I dropped. I'm flourishing with my hands, I dropped my pen. Is I feel very lonely. And these are things that I do to kind of combat that loneliness. Writing an email to her, like, one reason, like, what am I trying to say? Talking with most people makes me feel even lonelier, because I can't talk about everything that I want to on my mind. Talking to her is a little bit better because of things we've been through together, wherein we have things in common that make it possible for me to be more honest and open. Kind of like I am here. I mean, I'm not being 100% honest because I'm not telling you what we have in common, because there's certain things I'm not sure yet if I want to share, and with the whole world. I mean, I still have this sort of veil of anonymity, where you don't know exactly who I am, and I get to sort of reveal myself in any way that I want to, and get to be whoever I want to be for as long as I want. So anyways, point is, this is another way. I mentioned to her that I'm doing these videos, and they're mostly for myself, but they're also for other people, just in case. I don't know. I doubt anyone would want to watch an hour and a half video of me just ranting, but you never know. I mean, maybe people just kind of like the sound of my voice, or they like the things that I have to talk about. And so we'll see, but I'm very lonely, and I've found, you know, from yesterday that this really helps, just even pretending that there's someone listening, because maybe someone will be one day. You know, I mean, there's 0 people watching right now, but maybe one day this video will be viewed 1 million times. I mean, even if it's viewed once, I mean, that would be incredible. But I mean, I'm likely to watch it again, and so I know I'm listening. So I'm really talking to myself. And it's this weird, so I don't feel alone when I'm doing these. I feel very, very, very connected to even the idea of someone being there. And it helps me think about things, because when you're talking to somebody, you have to be more clear. You have to be more concise. Whereas when you're thinking in your head, you can jumble your thoughts up, and you don't have to be, you can think in images, and you can think in rounded general thoughts. Whereas when you're talking, you have to put words to those thoughts, and you have to, you know, sort of order them in such a way that they make sense when you express them. And so anyways, yeah, I mean, that's sort of what I'm doing today. I've got the day off from school. It's Sunday, and I'm just kind of, what am I trying to say? I wanted to get back the feeling that I had yesterday. So I was like, you know what, why don't I just rant? Why don't I just talk about anything that comes to my mind? And we'll see where things go from there, you know? Oh, but anyway, so something I wanted to talk about was I named these guys. I mentioned I was going to do that in test 1, 2, 3. And so he already has a name. This is Fuzzy. He's a tiger. I don't know if you can tell that, but he's a tiger. And his name is Fuzzy. And I named him that after the feeling I got holding hands with my first girlfriend. Because, long story short, when you buy this particular teddy bear, you also get to name a star. And when I was holding hands with my first girlfriend for the first time, we were looking at the stars. So I chose a star in a specific constellation and named it Fuzzy after the feeling that we had. So that's where his name comes from. I didn't really have a name for him, and I didn't have a name for this guy. But I came up with names real fast. Like, it didn't even take me a minute. And so this is Snuggles. I just figured that'd be such a cute name for such a cute little puppy, Snuggles. And this is Marcus St. James. You know, I just thought that a porpoise needed a real regal, you know, kind of intense name. And Marcus St. James is what came to mind. So, I mean, they're teddies. I can name them anything I want at any time and change those names. But, you know, for today, let's just say that that's what we landed on. Yeah. What else can I talk about? I have a fish that I hate taking care of. It was a roommate of mine's, and she left it when she moved out. She just forgot about it. I've been taking care of it for like the last 6 months because she hasn't been living here. She's been living with her boyfriend, but she kept the room because she wanted a safety net. But then finally they decided to move in together for reals. and she decided she didn't need this place anymore. So now I'm living actually in her room, and but she left her fish. Now I have this fish, and his name was Jose. His name was Jose, and I'm debating keeping it Jose. I'm like, you know, he's my fish now. I want to give him a name that means something for me. So I mean, maybe I'll try and come up with a name for next episode. But yeah, something. Okay, I wanted to write this in the letter after I wrote the letter to my friend. I realized because I was trying to sum up everything new in my life, like what's going on, and then I was like, oh shit, I forgot something, and it's that I'm drinking coffee with cinnamon now. I mean, that seems like such a small thing for some people maybe, but I like drinking coffee black because it's manly. And I've for the last like month or two, I've been drinking it with cream because it eases that bitterness. But I found that cinnamon is not only a healthy additive, like there's so many health benefits to cinnamon, like antioxidants, the brain function, preserves brain function as you age. There's so many health benefits to cinnamon, and it also eases up that bitterness. So now I can drink it black, just black with a little cinnamon. And man, it's good. It's so good. And especially for someone like me who drinks 12 cups a day, which is, it might sound like a lot, but it's for medical reasons. I suffer from gout, and coffee or caffeine has a similar chemical composition to allopurinol, or the drug that you can take to moderate your uric acid levels. And so you can either take allopurinol or you can drink a lot of coffee. And so I choose drinking a lot of coffee because then I get the benefits of having like I'm wired all day. So yeah, that's sort of another thing that makes me really happy. What else can I rant about? What else do I want to talk about? Oh, okay. So this was something I wanted to talk about, is what do I do with, this is part of me feeling very lonely. This is something that makes me feel extremely lonely, is there's this girl in my one of my classes. She's a teacher's assistant, and she's really smart, and she's obviously very pretty, or else I'm attracted to her. That's what I'm trying to say. Otherwise, I mean, why would I be talking about her if there wasn't something about her that but beyond her looks, she's very nice, and she's very well-spoken and intelligent, and those are all attractive things about her. I mean, it's not just physical. And anyways, when we were going on a class excursion last Thursday, we walked together the majority of the time, and I'm the kind of person who's very I have a lot of intuition when it comes to body language and body positioning, and I get a lot. It's like I can read minds some of the time, and so I could just tell, she kind of has a thing for me, or at least that's my. I mean, I'm not so pompous. I don't have so much hubris that I just know for a fact that she's into me. What I mean is, I can surmise, I can theorize, I can what's the word? Infer that she has a thing for me based off of her body language. And basically it's just because we stood next to each other whenever the class stopped to measure and take observations of our surroundings. We stood next to each other, and when we were walking, we walked next to each other mostly, and we talked quite a bit, and And it wasn't all my doing. Like, it wasn't just because I walked near her. It was because I noticed she was hanging back near the back of the class where I was. And so I just sort of walked up next to her. And so it was sort of, she was making herself available and I was taking advantage of that. And certainly she stuck around. It's not like she walked away or avoided me. So, I mean, all of those things you can add together, right? If it was just one thing, one time, that's not really much to go off of. But for the entire journey, I mean, that adds up to something significant. And anyway, so it makes me feel even lonelier when stuff like that happens because I don't know what to do about it. I mean, a class, how do you just approach the subject of like, hey, we should hang out sometime? I mean, maybe it's that simple. I mean, I could literally be answering my own question. And it's that simple as just, having the guts to open up and ask her that. But what it comes back down to is, once we're hanging out, what do we talk about? What do I say? Because I'm very good at pretending. I mean, this is going back to what I mentioned in yesterday's episode, was that I'm not a sociopath, but I'm very much aware of what it takes to be a sociopath. And what I mean by that is I can pretend to be the greatest guy or the smartest guy or be interested in what you're interested in. And it's super easy for me. I just sort of listen, and then I start building a character. I'm kind of an actor in that sense. Like, I build characters, and then I just take on that character. And it's not to say that I'm not that person. What I'm doing is I'm taking parts of myself, who I am, and then I'm just fine-tuning it. I'm narrowing it down and revealing this much of who I am so that I appeal to you specifically. And I think everyone does that. I don't think I'm alone in doing that. I'm just aware that I do it. And I think that's what sets me apart from most people, is that I'm aware that I do it and I know how to do it really well. And so, but it makes me feel very trapped when I do that. On one hand, I make a lot of progress. I make a lot of friends, and I'm very good at being popular, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's very easy for me to be popular, but being popular in that way makes me very lonely. I'd be much happier to be popular, or to be unpopular, but to be very honest about who I am. Except what ends up happening is people tend to walk away when I'm honest and when I'm myself. People tend to avoid me. I mean, I'll be honest, my own mother hates talking to me. Whenever or I shouldn't just say, it's not just my mother, it's my own family, hates talking to me when I get real. They hate talking to me. They try and change the subject all the time, or just they get real quiet and they just, their eyes glaze over, and it's sad. It makes me feel so lonely that my own family doesn't understand me, or what I'm trying to say. So I just pretend. I just, play their game. And it's so sad and lonely. And so that's why I'm here is I mean, mostly just talking to myself and listening, but maybe there's a chance that somebody will come along and understand. They'll be like, hey, I get that. My family's like that too. They don't understand me. They just ignore me. They don't like talking about intellectual things. They don't like talking about real life stuff. They just want to rant about their life, and then they want you to shut up. They just want you to listen and then not say anything. That's it. Or say stuff like, oh, that's so sad, or oh, they don't want to, I don't know. That said, I mean, we just had a family dinner 2 days ago, and I have to admit, it went a lot better than I thought. At the dinner table, I brought up a few subjects. I was like, blah, 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 Trump, and blah, 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 the Kinder Morgan pipeline. And wow, people had opinions. And I was like, okay, this is impressive. This is, I mean, they weren't super deep or well thought out. It was, and I'm not saying that mine were either. I mean, I don't know a lot. I don't do a lot of research. I was mostly just throwing things out there to see what I would get back. And I was pleased to see that, most everyone at least wanted to have their say. And that made me happy. I was like, oh, maybe all isn't lost. Maybe, maybe these people, my family, maybe they do think for themselves a little bit. And, yeah, so, I mean, life's not all bad. I get so down in the dumps because I'm happy. Part of it is I'm happy being alone. I'm so content to just be left alone to my own devices. That, and this comes from, what I was talking about yesterday about being a Raptor is I take my losses as a win. So being alone is sort of a loss, but I look at it as a win in the sense that, like, if I wanted alone time right now, I have it. So I might as well take advantage of it. And so it's a win. And because I can see it that way, I can live with it that way. I mean, I could live forever completely alone. I'd have never thought that solitary confinement would be all that hard, because I feel like my entire life is solitary confinement. I mean, I'm not hanging out with friends right now. I don't have any plans on the horizon. I haven't really hung out with a friend in a while. So I like school for that reason, because school is like scheduled hanging out with other people, and sometimes you have to get in groups, and then you have to talk in groups, but it's just an opportunity to be around other people. And so you can talk about schoolwork. I mean, that's one subject you all have in common. You can just ask each other questions. Well, how'd you do on the test? How are you doing on the homework questions? And that's really fun, to be a part of something with other people. And so it's kind of like being at work in a sense. It's kind of like having work friends. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with work friends, there's just a lot of pressure when it comes to holding on or making more of it, and God, I mean, a big part of my life is just avoiding getting closer to people, because I know once people get to know me, once they get closer to me, they leave. And it's because, at least I think it's because, on one hand, I'm not available in the way that they want. I don't need their companionship nearly as much as I think that they need mine. And or maybe I do. I don't know. It's very complicated. Like, it goes both ways. Like, on one hand, like, maybe I need their companionship more than they need mine, but I'm so closed off from that need that I appear to be cold. You know, where like I'm trying not to live in that state of needing them. So I come across as complacent. So you know, but anyway, you know, anyways, point is, friends are easy for me, but having them makes me feel very alone. Like friends, I haven't found a friend in a really long time that makes me feel like I'm heard and understood. I do have one friend that I've had for a very long time. I shouldn't say that I have 0 friends. I do have one friend. It's just, and I've always been very honest with him, too honest, maybe to some extent, but I've always been very honest with him about who I am and what I think, and he's always been very honest with me about who he is and what he thinks, but maybe not as honest as I've been. I think sometimes. And anyways, it's just as we've gotten older, I think he had his focus in life has changed. I mean, he's married now and he's trying to have kids, and you know, he used to run his own company. He doesn't anymore, but he used to. I was always really proud of him for that, but the stress got to him and he's just sick and tired of that stress. But anyways, our relationship has changed, is what I'm getting at. And it's not the same as it used to, and we don't see each other very often, and we don't make time for each other like we used to. We used to make time for each other, or at least he used to make a lot of time for me. And because I've always been that hermit. He used to pull me out of my hermitness. And I was always very grateful of that. Grateful to him for that. Because I needed it. It helped me get out of my shell. Because I shell up. I mean, I've been a very different person. I went in grade 8, I think. No, grade 9. Grade 9. I took theater or drama in high school. And that changed me. That changed absolutely everything about me. I mean, I was the same person, but I learned how to turn everything into a performance. Every engagement with another person into a performance. And that changed who I was, how I appeared to other people. I became not very popular, but I became a lot more popular because I learned how to do everything I was talking about earlier, how to portray myself in such a way that I appealed to everyone, because I could appeal to you specifically. I just listened to what you're talking about, and I knew how to say the right things, pull from my own experiences, but say everything so that I appeal to everyone. So what I try and do now is I try and be myself. You know, a perfect example was, you know, while we were on our excursion for class, the teacher came up to me and she started talking about, she just randomly started talking about swear words. She's like, so my mother-in-law is blaming me for my husband's constant swearing. And so I took that opportunity to be like, oh, you know what? I don't swear. My mother swears like a trucker, but I don't swear. Not that I don't like swearing. I just think of it as the language of the brutes. And but I think there's a time and a place, like for comedy or for when you're in pain. And that's something that I really do think and feel. And so I try and be more honest with people. I try and I try and be honest in such a way that I am still appealing to other people. Where I try and I don't know. In one sense, it's like I'm crafting a persona. It's like I'm crafting who I am, but I truly try and live up to that idea of myself, of who I say I am. So I try not to say anything that I don't necessarily actually think or believe or want to be. So but in a way, it's always sort of been where I tell a lie and then I live up to that lie. And I've done that a lot. I mean, when I was young, there was a time when I used to tell people, if I'm at a restaurant and I'm alone, I'll sit down with someone else who's alone. And I'll just say to them, hey, do you mind if I sit with you? I hate eating alone. And I used to just tell people that. I never before, but I used to just tell people that I do that because in my mind, that's who I wanted to be. And then you know what? I went and did it a couple times and it worked out. One time I sat down with a pregnant woman. I didn't know she was pregnant, but when we got to talking, turns out she was pregnant and she was just waiting for a friend. And we had a nice chat, and I'm sure she thought it was like the weirdest thing in the world. But it was a lot easier to do when I was younger. I mean, now that I'm older, it would be weirder. Now it'd just be some weird guy. But when I was younger, it was charming, I'm sure. And it's funny how things change in that way, where as you grow older, the way that you behaved when you were younger becomes maybe not unacceptable, but definitely strange when related to your current age. So you kind of have to adjust. You have to change. You can't keep doing the same things you've always done. Otherwise, you sort of stagnate. And a big part of who I am now is getting over all of the things that I still do that I used to do. One thing in particular is video games. I don't play nearly as many video games as I used to. I talked a lot yesterday about playing Ark Survival Evolved and how that affected and changed who I am. And don't get me wrong, I still love video games. I will still always play video games. But I'm going through a phase right now where I just can't muster up the the energy or there's a word, I just can't think of it. And it's from the movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey. And I'm trying to think of it. Anyways, but I can't muster up the ability to enjoy playing a video game. And but I still love them. So I watch a lot of Twitch now. I mean, I point to my second TV because I've currently got Twitch on pause because I was watching it before I started this. And I watch a lot of Twitch because it fulfills that gaming need without having to do it. And so that's kind of where I'm at in life, where I'm sort of adjusting to video games. And I mean, I don't watch that much Twitch. I mostly just have it on the background when I study because I like to have white noise, and it's just, that's all it is. Whereas if I'm watching like a TV show, I'll miss it. I'll be missing the show, or I'm either paying attention to the show and not doing my homework, or I'm doing my homework and I'm missing the show. And so if it was something like Friends, where I've watched every season of Friends probably 6 or 7 times, maybe close to 10, then it doesn't matter so much because I'm not missing anything. But if it's a current show like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where I'm on the 5th season right now, then I'm going to miss some of the show. So it's easier just to throw Twitch up and then know someone's playing a video game in the background and I'm enjoying hearing the explosions and the gunshots. And because that's something I was realizing a while back, was I need that sound of action. It's not like post-traumatic stress disorder. It's not like PTSD. But from playing hours and hours and hours of Battlefield 4, have gotten so used to the sound of gunfire and tank explosions and and sniper shots. I mean, all of it is so ingrained in my mind that it's normal, that it calms me. It makes things smooth. I don't know if that's the right word, but it helps me focus, I guess is what I'm trying to say, just to have it on in the background while I'm studying. So mostly what I watch now is Fortnite. I like to watch a lot of Fortnite. Ninja, shout out to Ninja, and Dr. Lupo and Summit 1G. Those are like the three main guys that I watch on Twitch. Not in any particular order. Just in order that they're on right now. I can look and see how many in order of viewership, I suppose, is where they're at. And yeah, so anyways, I don't want to give up on video games, is what I'm trying to say, is where I'm going with this, where I'm trying not to play as much, but my whole goal, like the whole reason I want to develop artificial intelligence and become a programmer, and learn computer science, is because I want to develop a video game. And I'm going to devote one episode or two or three or however many to eventually talk about my video game called Ald Online, or Aldo, funnily enough. Sorry, I'm just thinking of like, how much should I tell you right now? Because I kind of don't want to give too much away, in the sense that it's a really great title for a game, I think. If you know what ALD stands for, ALD. And it started as like, I just wanted to use my name because I wanted Aldo, the name Aldo, to become very synonymous with me and my creations and stuff like that. But then when I worked out the acronym for what I thought it could be, I was like, wow, damn, that's good. And I like it. And so I don't want anyone to steal it. But yeah, anyways, I want to develop this video game. And so video games will always be a big, huge part of my life. I don't necessarily equate video game enjoyment with youth or being young or being immature. I just mean, like, in regards to what I was talking about earlier, now I'm trying to shift my focus in life from playing video games to developing them, and sort of taking my life into my own hands in that sense. Because, I mean, a big part of it is that there just isn't a video game right now currently on the market that appeals to me. I mean, Far Cry 5 might have, maybe, because I do like the Far Cry series. And it probably could have been pretty fun if I had bought it. I mean, I might still buy it. I'm just waiting for it to go on sale, really. But, and then I heard that there's a new Fallout game, like Fallout 5, on the horizon. So that, too, is very appealing. But ultimately, those games lack some qualities that video games aren't capable of having currently in their with the way systems are currently set up. And so I have a few ideas that I have got to develop on my own to change that. And that's a big reason why I want to develop video games, is because I see room for improvement. I see room for improvement, and I want to take advantage of that and improve video games and the quality of them, so that not just for me, but so that when I get, maybe one day have children, they're not playing the same game that I played. And what I mean by that is, like, when games first were developed, it was like Pong, and it was just a a blip moving back and forth across the screen. That was the game, you know. And then it changed, and then you had like Madden NFL and Excite Bike 64 or Frog, or, you know, games slowly changed and developed and became more and more complex, and in such a way that each successive generation, you know, wasn't playing the same game that their father before them played, you know. And I'm sure that wasn't like father to son 100%. Like, that's not entirely how it went. But really, I feel like we've stagnated at where the current level of technology is. You know, we have one kind of controller that's standard across the board. And from that controller, you have so many limitations. And what I want to do is develop a controller that breaks those limitations. And then from those broken limitations, you know, build something entirely new. I mean, it won't be entirely new. It's more of an improvement on what currently exists, but it will still be something different. And that's what I want for my children, is for them to be able to take full advantage of their capabilities when they play video games. And if I eventually talk about it in a future episode, I'll get more into that. But I think I'm going to stop this episode here. I feel like I've ranted enough where I feel pretty self-satisfied in this. This is sort of like a nothing episode. But I want to get into a lesson about a Raptor and show you that, and really delve deep into what that is, so that when I do my title cards in Raptor, you can read them, and perhaps even maybe start using it yourself in your personal life. I mean, it's not something I don't know if it'll be of use to very many people, but it's mostly like a fun thing to do, is just to write English words, or any word in any language really, phonetically, and see the core foundations of the word, of the sound, to see it written such that each individual symbol has a sound. So really, you're seeing the word naked, you know, on paper. You're seeing the heart of the word. I mean, when I get into it, you'll really understand. But anyways, I'll see you in half a second.